I'm Jim Eskin, on behalf of Eskin Fundraising Training. It's my privilege and pleasure to welcome you, like 101 Dalmatians, to the 101st nonprofit and web empowerment webinar. And this one, have you all ever heard the word no? I sure have. I heard it about 10 minutes ago. And I have a mentor of mine who I refer to as the First Lady of Fundraising, Abbie Schlegell, who is in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. I don't know how to introduce, by the way, she's the First Lady, but in all fairness, I don't know any man that's her equal with expertise in the fundraising field. She has done it all. She's been a practitioner at some of the most prestigious organizations around the country. She has been a consultant. She's been a coach. She authored one of the very first books about women in philanthropy. And by the way, one of the things that really impresses me, she's one of the 10 humans on the planet that's been awarded by our Association of Fundraising Professionals the status of fellow. And to give that a little perspective, more men have walked the moon. 12 men have walked the moon. Only 10 have received this honor. Abbie, thank you for the leadership you have provided, the nonprofit sector, the mentoring you provided, people like me. First of all, how is the von Schlegell family doing, and how's the weather in Pittsfield?
They're all doing fine. My family lives east of me. I have grandchildren and a daughter, and even further east, a brother and his family. And I'm doing great.
Why don't you just kind of stay on hold? We have a segment we call Heroes Among Us. And John, I'd like to introduce another one of my heroes, and that is Sheila Klein. And I believe, Sheila, if I have it correct, there are 120 chapters in the country, and overall about 22,000 members. You and I have known each other not too long, I only think about 10 or 15 years, and other capacities. You are a former president of the Assistance League of San Antonio, and you must be doing a good job because they've made you grants committee chair for 5 years in a row. Sheila, first of all, I know what you've meant to San Antonio. I know what the Assistance League has meant to San Antonio. I want to thank all of you for your service and leadership, particularly through the difficult days we've had to endure. And I want to give you a whole 5 minutes to give us an update on this marvelous organization called the Assistance League.
Well, thank you, Jim. Yes, we have known each other for a few years, I suppose. Assistance League of San Antonio is one of 120 chapters nationwide, but each chapter operates independently from the national. For example, all the money that's raised in San Antonio for us stays here. None goes to the national organization. We're all volunteer. We'll be celebrating our 40th anniversary next year in San Antonio, which is pretty amazing for a nonprofit, especially an all-volunteer nonprofit. Our programs are managed and executed by our member volunteers, which currently number around 370. We have one full-time bookkeeper, our office manager, and one part-time bookkeeper. Otherwise, everything is volunteer. We have 7 programs meeting underserved needs in San Antonio. And in 2021, our member volunteers contributed over 43,000 volunteer hours to support nearly 35,000 children and adults in Bexar County. So if you figure that at the IRS rate of what a volunteer's hours would, that's like $28 an hour or something. That's a lot of money. Our budget is just over $1 million annually. Our purpose is Assistance League volunteers transforming the lives of children and adults through community programs. And our vision is that essential needs are met in our community and families will flourish. As I said, we have 7 programs our two major programs are clothing programs for children aged birth through 5th grade. In Operation School Bell, the program for school-age children, we provide new clothing for schools or children in Title I schools. Counselors and social workers, teachers identify the children in need. They contact us. They bring the children to us on a bus. They get off the bus, come in. One of our volunteer members takes them under their wing. The children get to shop. It's like a department store. They get to shop for brand new clothes, choose their clothing. And the things that we hear from children, a lot of these children have never had clothing that still had the tags on them, new clothes. They get shoes, underwear, socks, a book. We encourage reading, so we give all the children a book and they get to select their book. A lot of times, oh, my little sister couldn't come today, or I have a sister that hasn't started school yet. Can I get a book for them? And we never say no. So if you can't say no to a book. Talks for Tots is the program for children birth to pre-K. We do not see those children. They come to us through agencies. Any Baby Can, Avance. We work with Blessed Sacrament. Okay. We fill the orders. They give us the name or the age of the child and well, the age and the size, and we fill those orders for them. And then the members fill the bags and the counselors come and pick them up.
So Sheila, I know what you've done. I know your assistant Leek has done. You've come to our workshops. I've seen you all in action. Again, from the bottom of our hearts, speaking for the community of San Antonio and elsewhere, thank you for your devotion, your service, your leadership to help those who are struggling. So I want to start with a preliminary question, okay? Since you're my mentor, why do you think so many business and community leaders, okay, who are so fearless in everything they have to face in the rest of their lives are scared of asking for a gift for their favorite nonprofit or cause?
Asking a friend, asking a business colleague, and they are not comfortable with that. They just don't, they've never had to do that. They don't even make the connection, which is so obvious to me, that it's sales. They're selling their institution, but they're afraid of that. They don't think about it that way. That's the biggest challenge. Wait a minute, you're asking your next door neighbor who you've known for 40 years for a gift to your college, and you both went there and you can't do that? It's a common problem.
You know what I find ridiculous? That sometimes board members are more willing to ask a stranger than someone they went to college with. You know, I can't figure that one out. Okay. Here's another question, and then we're going to get to the no's. When do you know that a donor prospect is ready to be asked for a gift?
It's a tough question.
That's why I'm asking you it.
But I think the real answer has to do with how much time, it's not even so much time, how much you have invested in engaging that particular individual in learning more about the organization and its needs. The best circumstance is when the donor who has said no in the past says, okay, I got it. I really see the need and I really want to make a difference in how they're addressing this problem. So I will say yes now.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you one other question, then we're going to go to the no category. How should a nonprofit determine how much to ask the donor for?
Research.
Okay, be a little more specific.
Okay, well, they need to find, under the best of circumstances, they need to find out, and there's lots of ways to do that, how much that individual is giving to other places.
Yeah.
They need to have a good idea of what the budget is for the project that they're asking the donor to support. Now, I'm assuming that this donor is being asked for a major gift, not an annual gift.
Right.
Annual gifts are a whole different story. But a major gift, you need to have some pretty clear facts on what the costs are for the particular project. It doesn't have to be a building. It could be a big new program. or addition to a program, or an endowment, or a cash reserve. There's lots of things it could be.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, one more out of the box question, but let's forget about no. Let's just say you ask for a gift. It could be for 10,000, it could be for 10 million, and the donor says the beautiful word yes. What should the solicitor do at that point?
Say thank you multiple times. I'm assuming this is in a personal
Right.
conversation. So it's in a
Right, it's
personal
a face-to-face
conversation.
solicitation.
The donor's going to be very grateful, and then and acknowledging the support that that person and the difference that that person can make with his or her gift.
Right.
And then get into the details. Who else would you
Right.
like to meet from the institution? How can we further give you more information about this project?
And I'm thinking it'd be surprising. I always ask, how exactly do you want to be recognized? Is it Mr.? Is there a Mr. and Mrs.? Is it so-and-so family? And ask to the mechanics, I mean, how would you like to pay this out? Do you want to pay it lump sum? Do you want to pay it over a pledge period, say over 2 to 5 years? But and typically, Abbie, we like to have a commitment form that
Yes.
just puts down these simple facts. I mean, when someone signs a written pledge form, it's not legally binding, but 90% of the time they fulfill the gift. If it's just a verbal pledge, the percentages are much different. Hey, well, let's
There's
get
no
to
question I would follow up with
the,
a written document.
yeah. Let's move to the subject at hand. Why do most prospects say no?
Number one, they say no because you didn't do enough research to understand whether it was the right amount of money to be asking them for. They may not be interested in the project. They may not be interested in the institution. They really may have cash flow issues in their own family. I had not about 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, I had someone who I knew had the money. I had done the research. I had, I knew that he had given $6 million to an independent school in Connecticut. And I'd seen it recorded at that school as that he was the donor. And I asked him, and I actually made that ask, which I don't usually do as a consultant. I asked him for $1 million for this particular project, and he said no. And I went, I'm so surprised because you're a board member of this organization. He said, I can't afford that. Well, I think what he was telling me was he couldn't afford that level of gift for that particular project. The school where he made the gift of $6 million, his daughter went there, and his daughter was an alumna. So, and this particular project was a community-based project, and I think he just wasn't as interested.
Okay, let's move on. How can you diplomatically discover their real reasons for saying no? Because I don't mind hearing the word no. Actually, I do mind hearing it, but I would feel better if I understand their reasons for saying no. How do we diplomatically discover their real reasons for declining?
Can we, I'm talking to the donor now, can we talk about what could make a difference that you would still be interested? You might change your mind about your commitment to this institution or to this project. Are there other things standing in the way of your making a gift to support this effort? Do you have other family commitments that you need to support before making a gift to us? I'm pretending I'm the organization now. To me, those are all the kinds of questions you would think about asking. And you want to get him or her talking about how they feel about the organization. And what might they consider giving either now or at a future date?
Hey, Abbie, how can you tell the difference what I call a hard no and a no that, let's say, leaves the door open just a little bit?
A hard no, they don't want to go on talking about with you.
Yeah.
Your dad, it's gone. And in this particular case with this man, he shut me down. I mean, I tried to say, I know you've been generous publicly to a number of other organizations. And he said, that's none of your business. And I really don't want to give that large of a gift to this institution. I mean, he really shut me down.
Yeah.
And so then I just had to be gracious and go back to the organization and say, we cannot count on that kind of money from this person. And of course, I knew that the gift of $6 million to the school was public. So it wasn't like I didn't know that he could make that kind of gift.
Yeah. John, do I see we have some questions in the Q&A space?
I see them. I just found them.
Yes, we do. The first question, it seems most large donors are fully aware that we know where they've given previously and how much. Is it okay to openly talk about the giving history research that you've done on them? And do you consider that to be an invasion of privacy?
I think it is tough. And I think it is on the edge of an invasion of privacy. People now know that their giving records often are public, particularly since annual reports now are not just printed, but they're also online on websites of nonprofits and who the donors are. And if your name is Dan Baker, that's a little easier to hide. But if your name is Abbie von Schlegell, believe me, it's not very easy to hide because I think there's another Abbie von Schlegell in the US. So I'm not sure. I mean, I think you have to explain that every organization wants to acknowledge the donors that they get.
Yeah. I think of it this way. I would never use their big amounts to other organizations to kind of guilt them into giving to your organization. I think it's the way you use it and your tone. I think it's one matter to thank them. Say they gave $6 million to the school that your daughter or son attended, and to thank them, and you know personally the impact of their leadership gift on that institution. I would not use the tone, well, you gave $6 million to Acme University, so you can give $5 million to Acme. So I think it's really the way and the tone you use it.
It's also whether or not you have a relationship already with that person.
Yeah. And Dan, by the way, thank you for the work you do with the National Peace Corps
Also,
Association.
Dan just had a great response. He said some people are completely freaked out by us knowing what they give. And that's exactly right. They are, Dan. But what people forget is that many institutions, not just colleges and universities, print annual reports that say, here's the donors who've given at the super spectacular level, which if you read the fine print, it says super spectacular is $100,000 or more. And here are the donors that have given at the spectacular level. Those are $50,000 or more. I mean, so it's actually sometimes easy to figure out what people have given.
And remember, we were talking, when you hear the beautiful word yes, one of the other questions you ask the donor, not only how do you want to be recognized, but can we publicize this gift? And so, most donors who say, yes, you can publicize it, know that gift's out there for public. If they don't want it publicized, and a lot say no, let me tell you, a lot of the big donors would prefer to remain anonymous because they don't want Addie and Jim coming after them. So I think that kind of sets the stage. If they have permitted the size of that gift to be publicized in a big story in the newspaper or on TV, I think it's out there as common knowledge, and with their willingness to do that. Abbie,
especially if they publicize it. Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. Abbie, I think you just said it, but one of the reasons I've heard the most in my gray hair career is when people say, I am already supporting 2 other nonprofits. I can't support one more organization.
My response to that would, other than saying thank you, that's very generous of you. And I'm sure that those organizations appreciate your support. I would also say, Would there be a time at which it would be comfortable for you to consider making a gift to my organization later in the future? A year from now, 2 years from now, certainly want to keep in touch with you over that period, and you'll be able to learn more about what we're doing. But we'd love to be able to come back to you.
I like that. And particularly a lot of the big gifts, as Abbie and I know, were paid out over multi-year pledge periods. And someone might be very wealthy, but they might have made 5 or 6 or 7-figure commitments, say over the next 5 years. But in 5 years, their financial position will be a little different. Abbie,
Right.
what do you do when the donor says that's way too much?
Again, you're back to getting in a conversation with them. Well, the project that we are asking you to support, the total budget is $100,000. But we could make a real difference in that project if you could consider a gift of $50,000. You negotiate down, you don't negotiate up.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons you start high, because you can't negotiate up. If you ask someone for $25,000 and they say, "Oh, sure, can I write you a check?" You didn't ask for enough.
That's a go away gift, isn't it?
Well, potentially,
Hey,
yes.
another question is related to that. What do you say you got into it if the donor says this just isn't a good time?
That's an easy answer, Jim. So when would be a better time for you? Could we talk in a month?
And that's, yes, exactly. Yeah, and be specific, right? You said a specific date, like
Yes.
it's that not the 13th of never. Say, can we get together, say on January 1st? Can we get
Yes,
together
right.
on June 30th? Set a
That's
specific
right. Well, you
date.
pick either one of those
and-
dates. But I would say, how about 2 weeks from tomorrow, January 15th? Is there a good time of day to check back with you? I mean, I would try and get specific
Yeah.
that way, but
and-
you happen to use the first day of the year and the last day of the fiscal year for many organizations, and I wouldn't use those.
How come?
Because January 1st, often we're all writing checks dated December 31st, and praying that they won't notice the postmark. And
By
January,
the way, that's not acceptable to the IRS. It's not the
I'm
date
aware
of
of
your check, but when
Yeah.
it's transmitted. But anyways, go ahead. I'm
um,
displaying a know-it-all.
it's okay. And June 30th, that's the last day of the fiscal year for many nonprofits, not all of them, but many of them. And so I wouldn't want to be asking somebody on that day.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. How about a lot of times the donor prospect will say they need to discuss this with the family members. They need to discuss this with a lawyer, a CPA, financial advisors. What do you do then?
Could we talk about a time in the next 10 days or 2 weeks when we might get together and continue to talk about this project? And in the meantime, I will be sending you some additional information describing the impact that that your gifts could potentially have.
I like that.
Jim, I'm a major gift officer from a long time ago.
Yeah, okay. Before there were major gifts, right?
No.
Yeah.
And now, actually, my current thing is I grow major gifts officers because my daughter is director of major gifts at a independent school.
Okay, and she's learned from the best. Okay, here's a good one. What do you do? And you solicit, you put on your best blue suit and you shine your shoes.
I don't have a blue suit.
I had when it was $1 million gift. Andrea knew I was asking for $1 million gift. I had a favorite blue suit, a favorite blue shirt, and a favorite blue dotted tie. That was my big money ask. And by the way, that's what I'm going to be buried in, which I hope won't be for a long time. But we got off subject. Abbie, what do? You ask someone real enthusiastically, I'm in my blue suit and everything. You know what they say? I gave your organization a gift 5 years ago, and I didn't even receive a thank you.
You apologize like crazy. You ask what it is that we could do to make up for that. You can't blame it on the secretary who got sick or left or whatever. I mean, there's no blame there. The blame is on the institution. And actually, I'm a maniac about thanking. I think you can thank a donor up to 7 times. And unless
7x,
let's make sure that at least something gets through. An email, quick acknowledgement from the system, because nowadays it's almost impossible to have it happen because computer systems will automatically pump out acknowledgement letters. And if your database CRM is not set up to do that, I wholeheartedly recommend that you do that, because at least they're getting that acknowledgement.
Okay,
I think stewardship is everything.
Yeah, I think stewardship really is the next solicitation, you'd ask me.
It should be.
Here's another fun situation. Here's another fun one that we all run into. You know that your major gift donor prospect can't stand the president, the CEO, the executive director, the board chair. But those people want to be involved in the solicitation, and you're the major gift officer. What do?
Tiptoe around all of that awfulness, because of course I've experienced it, and I know that I can remember times when I've worked for 2 universities as staff in major gifts, and when somebody said, I don't want to see the president. Well, okay, fine, but now let's figure out, I'm not going to ask this person, who do they want to see? Do they want to see, in the case of a university, the chair of a department? Do they want to see a trustee? And I want to answer one of the questions that somebody named Campion just asked. Is it Catherine Campion? Somebody asked a question. It's Catherine Campion. Getting a mutual friend. I want you to ask the mutual friend for advice before you ask the mutual friend to intervene. She asked if we should ask could a mutual friend intervene if the donor said no. I think hopefully you will have talked to the mutual friend before you made the ask, so that you can get intelligence from that person as to what the friend is thinking. But in terms of the intervening, there's certainly plenty of people who could be making that ask. Doesn't have to be the president.
And by the way, and
Or the
Abbie, we
executive
need
director.
you to center yourself a little there. Okay. Particularly if the major gift officer has a good relationship, they can do it on their own. You know, it doesn't, I mean, rule of thumb is for $1 million gift, you want the president or the CEO, but the bottom line is bringing the gift home. And I had bosses who said, I will ask for the gift or I will put myself in the closet. Sometimes they said, okay, get in the closet, because, you know, as a major gift officer, I had the relationship, and hopefully most CEOs, they're really concerned about results and they'll put their ego aside. Abbie,
actually, Jim, I really don't. I want to go back to the comment you just made. When I was working for Stanford, which I did for 10 years, and I was in the major gift staff for 7 of that, our vice president really, and this is a long time ago, but really did not believe that the staff should be doing the asking. It was heavily volunteer driven. And he really did not want the staff, particularly not the woman staff member. I was the first woman hired at Stanford as a gift officer.
Can I ask how long ago that was?
40 years.
I think things have changed in 40 years.
Oh, no
with all
question
due
about that.
respect.
But I also
Yeah.
think it's a question of respect. If you're asking an individual for $1 million or even $100,000, someone senior in the institution, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's the Girl Scouts, whether it's a university, whether it's a community college, someone more senior in that institution should be making that ask, should be involved in that ask, because it's a question of respect for the donor.
Yeah, but if the donor can't stand that person, I think it's a gray area. Let's move on, Abbie, okay?
Yep.
We'll agree to disagree, okay? Let's
Yep.
move on. What do you do?
I also want to know if anybody in the audience has any questions.
Yeah, okay. John, do we have anybody in the audience with a question?
Dan does.
Yes, he's asking regarding peer-to-peer fundraising, is it better to have a board director who is also a major donor make the request?
Abbie, that's an easy one. Abbie, both of us will say yes, 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 yes. Go ahead, Abbie.
Absolutely. No question, Dan.
Nothing. That way they can say, will you join me in making a gift of $50,000, $100,000, $1 million?
That
Abbie,
is my
let's move
favorite
on.
phrase. That's the phrase I use a lot in training.
Yeah.
Switch it to, will you join me?
Right. And
Or
that's
please
why
join me.
that board member has so much credibility if they've given it the amount they are asking for. What do you say if a donor says, okay, I think there's another organization that's doing a better job of addressing your mission?
Okay, can we get together? I'd love to get together with them and talk about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and perhaps partnership.
Good. I mean, I like, Abbie, you're saying don't be in opposite sides of the table, get on their side of the table.
Exactly.
Because
Join the table.
you all are focusing on the same mission. You want to help students, you want to help seniors, you want to help people with certain diseases, and that's the important thing. Wrap yourselves around the mission. What do you do if a donor very abruptly ends the meeting and asks you to leave?
Thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Guess what? I agree with you 100% on that one.
There's nothing else you can do.
I
Nothing.
think that's close what they call a hard no,
You don't get up in a huff and storm out of the room. You're just
Never.
charming and grateful and appreciative. As much as you
This is
might want to
close
storm
to
out of
it.
the room
Yeah,
and slam the door.
You preempted the next question, but what's your advice? Say they don't ask you to leave, but what's your advice on closing the meeting in which the donor prospect has declined your request?
Exactly what I just said.
No, they didn't ask you to leave, okay?
No, but it doesn't matter. You're still saying
I-
thank you for your time. I'm glad
Right.
that I'm glad we had a chance to talk about this project. I'd love to keep you involved, keep you informed about what we're doing.
Yes,
And
yes.
I hope you can come and visit the program, the campus, the hospital, the whatever it is, at some point in the future.
okay, Abbie.
Leave it
okay,
open.
The donor prospect, yes, keep it open, okay? If the prospect turns you down, what's an appropriate time to wait and try again?
First, you ask them when it is. And otherwise, I'd like to get back together with you.
How might you ask them? How might you phrase that?
I'd really like to get back together with you again to talk about this. When might that be appropriate for you? When that might fit? When are you going to be back in the country again?
Yeah, you're empowering the donor. We always want to empower the donor and put them in decision-making position. What do you do if the donor prospect requests research or information that is virtually impossible to obtain?
But that we have?
What's that?
But that we already have information we have?
No, no,
What-
no,
what-
no. The donor prospect asks you for information that you know is impossible for you to obtain.
I'm so sorry. We've tried to find that out and we really are unable to do that. I would
That's
just,
happened.
oh, sure, of course it has. But again, I'm back to, I completely think the fundraising should not be called fundraising. I think it should be called relationship building. And you're never going, you do not want to sever the relationship that hopefully you've even built before you ever got involved in this conversation with the donor about a gift. And so you want to keep that relationship moving in the positive direction. And so you don't want to just say, heavens, I have no idea. Why would you even ask me that? Which, you know, there would people
Yeah.
who would say that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You are doing a great job of managing time. John, I'm going to encourage the audience. Would you like to come on camera? Diana Hoyt, come on camera.
Diana
camera for a
just
moment.
said something. Thank you, Diana. I think I've said some of those things long before he said them.
Can you come on camera? Diana, can you come on camera?
I can't, Jim.
John,
My
can we
camera's decided not to work for whatever reason.
Okay, can we listen to your wisdom? What's been your experience in turning people who said no to you to saying yes?
You know, I think you have to give them time. I agreed with what Abbie said. You know, it's ask them when it would be a good time, and also listen to their reasons. You know, I have had conversations with people that I could not argue with that reason. I could just simply say, you know, I appreciate your time today, and we'll get back together.
Yeah. Is Ken McKenzie out there? Ken has been both in the for-profit and nonprofit sector. Any chance we can bring Ken McKenzie on? Ken and I worked together about 6 lifetimes ago. Ken, would you like to come on camera and maybe kind of share a for-profit perspective? Can we elevate? You see Ken McKenzie there? Where you've been familiar with both the for-profit and nonprofit sector. So talk a little from the for-profit sector. What's your experience in turning a no into a yes?
Well, it's never easy, and I haven't done as much of it as you folks that are presenting here today. But I think the key ingredient that I've heard from Abbie today has been the relationship building versus raising funds.
Yes.
You make that differentiation and value all the relations that you develop with people over the years. Sometimes it's lighthearted and it's humor, and it's, you know, it's not that nervousness that happens when you're talking money and people writing checks and that. So I think it's so important. The cold approach, you know, where you're probably more nervous, is just an uncomfortable on both sides of that table, no doubt. So I mean, I think the familiarity that you can present to that person, and no, you don't want to bore them in small talk very long, but you got to get to a comfortable spot and make it feel pretty natural.
I think the other
stick
thing
with us for. Okay, absolutely, Abbie. I want to ask this next question because Ken brought it up. Ken, stick with us. Abbie, how would you suggest you can and can't use humor when you hear no?
Well, you know me well enough, Jim, to know that I use humor all the time. So I guess I'm not uncomfortable using humor, and so I can't think of a specific situation when I might have used it when I was in a solicitation conversation, but I'm certainly positive that I have, because I use it frequently. The thing I wanted to say in response to, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. Ken's comments, is that I think the other thing that's really important, in addition to thinking about relationship building, you have to feel confident and I want to emphasize that word confident, in your knowledge and in the amount of money you're asking for. You have to show confidence. You don't have to show, you can't show that you're afraid or nervous or anxious or any of those things. We really have to be confident in what you're asking while you're asking. And then the donor is going to have more respect for you and feel more confident in his or her mind. Oh, this person really does know what they're talking about. That's coming.
And Abbie, wouldn't you say you have to approach this? It's not like a zero-sum game. This is a win-win, right?
Yes,
You are
absolutely.
getting, your institution's benefiting, but the donor is getting an opportunity to feel great and
That's
to make
exactly
a
right.
difference about an issue they really care about. And Ken,
And in the
we'll
case
catch
of
up later. Go ahead.
Jim, in
Go
the
ahead,
case
Abbie.
in case of women donors, women really want to make a difference with their gifts. They want to know that and see what a kind of a difference their gift is going to make, whether it's a gift of $100 or a gift of $1 million or more than that. And I'm quite certain that the very largest donors in this country who have given billions of dollars feel the same way, except not so much Jeff Bezos. I think Jeff Bezos is doing it. I think Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, is playing a game with his money. I think Elon Musk is playing a game with this money, but they're doing it for ego purposes. Women don't think that way.
Well, we're both going to get in trouble, but I think his ex-wife put him on the spot by giving away $14 billion.
I know.
And
Oh my
she's
God,
worth
yes.
about half of what he's worth.
Right.
So, do we have any other, Margie Hellshine, are you in the audience? She has a wonderful nonprofit called America Connected, and you have to check out her LinkedIn posts, which are so wise and crafted so beautifully about the art and science of cultural diplomacy. Margie, you've been to 11 different countries, right? Right?
Yes. Sorry, I can't seem to get my camera on. I'm not
That's
sure.
okay. Don't worry about it. We
It's
can see your
okay.
picture.
Okay, we'll listen to you. We'll listen to you. Margie, does in 11 different countries and cultures you have experience, is a no and a yes kind of have different nuances as it does here in the United States?
I don't know. Everybody always tells me no, so I don't know what to tell you. I
I never tell you no. And
I don't know. I think it's important to raise money, but I think times are so different now. It's really hard. Like, I don't find it easy at all. I find everybody tells me, no, not right now. We don't have any money. We're busy. We just gave money. Maybe next year, maybe when this whole, pandemic thing is over. So I'm probably not the right person to ask because I tried to raise it, but it's not
I
working.
want to say, you know what happens if you're a baseball player and you get a hit 1 out of every 3 times at plate, you're probably going to go to the Hall of Fame. And Abbie and I have been in the fundraising business for a while. You are going to hear the word no, but to hear the word yes, you have to be willing to risk hearing the word no. And by the way, if you get that percentage anywhere close to that, Abbie, of hearing 1 out of 3 yeses for every ask you make, your organization's going to do exceedingly well. And so when I had people working for me, of course, I'd rather hear them say they got a yes. But I know even when they came back and they got a no, it told me they're working. And you don't have a chance of getting a yes until you ask. And
That's
the
right.
only bad
That's absolutely
ask
right.
is the ask never made. And so one of the other things, Abbie, I want to emphasize, no is all a part of life. I don't know anyone in any discipline that can try to accomplish something that's not afraid, that is afraid of rejection. When I hear people say they can't take a rejection, how do you go anywhere in business, in education, in medicine, in any field, in engineering? If you're afraid of hearing no, it's all part of life. And you know what happens when you hear no? The next day the sun comes up, and maybe tomorrow you ask and you hear yes, and you chime the bell because your nonprofit just got $10,000, just got $100,000, just got $1 million. And I'm saying again, there's no shame in hearing a no. To me, there's shame in not making the ask. And Abbie, I'm sorry to the philosophize. I'll turn it over to you.
I completely believe it that. I mean, if you don't ask, you're never going to get anything.
Yeah,
And that goes for buying groceries and trying to raise money.
right,
Right. And again, I'm going to stick with relationship building. If you're being a development officer and or anything, even a salesperson, you have to help people learn about your nonprofit or your product if you're selling something, or your service if you're selling a service. And they're not going to buy something cold without, just because it's named gee whiz, just what you've always wanted, is the name of it. Well, that's ridiculous, because I don't know that I've always wanted it. I need to know more about it.
yeah.
So I think it's all about relationship building.
And I think you told me, I like to say cultivation, but you told me that's the word engagement. So we say you
Yes.
have to engage them.
Yes.
John Largent, can you put up Abbie's contact information? And Abbie, once again, it's been a pleasure. The hour has just flown by. And I want to thank you for the mentorship you have provided me personally, but you have provided leadership, so much leadership to the nonprofit sector. I don't care, what part of the nonprofit community, what part of the country. People to know the name, like Sheila Klein has heard you, and a gazillion people have heard you. So I want to thank you for your devotion, your service, and the leadership to enrich the nonprofit sector. And by the way, this is how there's your email and there's your cell phone. I use both of those today. So I know she answers, and she's in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, where it's just beautiful country. But again, I also want to thank our learning community, because each one of you, in some way, no matter what your nonprofit is, you're doing something very real to touch, improve, and save more lives. And you are our heroes. And so, Abbie, I'll let you have the last word.
No, thanks so much, Jim. As always, I always enjoy this.
And we'll see you in Pittsfield. I'm saying around October 7th to 14th. How's that?
Yep. Okay. Take
You
care
know,
to all of
you
you.
know some good wineries. And again, thank Diana Hoyt and everyone. Thank you
Thanks,
to
Diana.
members of the learning community. Good to connect with Ken McKenzie. Thank you, Margie, for sharing your international perspective. Our plan is we're going to put a very short summary of Abbie's main points on LinkedIn and Facebook. And thank you, Margot. And then John does a spin dry editing of this recording. And we'll be posting it somewhere between 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Tomorrow. So John.
Thanks so much to everyone.
Thank you. And Abbie, be well. And to our learning community, until our next program on June 7th, featuring Laura Fredericks, who's come up with her 7th book on asking, and I can't wait to talk about it with her. So folks, everyone be well. We'll see you in 2 weeks.